Welcome to the Teach Joyfully podcast, where we talk about all things elementary teaching with some mom stuff thrown in. I'm Lisa Burns, and I'll be your host. Thanks for joining me. Now, let's dive into today's conversation. Now, today, the topic is menu planning for efficiency, money saving, and better health. Now, let me just set the stage for you for a minute. If you've ever stood in front of an open fridge and wondered what's for dinner, or you're sick to death of sandwiches for lunch, this episode is for you. It doesn't matter what you do, but as teachers, I know we live life at 100 miles an hour, and it is hard to come home and have to feed a family or even just yourself. If you have a spouse that does all the cooking, go thank them. Go make them a drink, something. You are blessed. For the rest of us, I'm here with Lisa Seigle. Today, she's going to teach us more about menu planning and how it can solve your, what she calls, dinner dilemma. Lisa is a wife, a mom, an almost empty nester, and a home cook who took her love of cooking and watching all the Food Network shows and meal planning and created a menu for you, a business and website focused on seasonal whole food cooking that teaches people how to meal plan in order to save money, reduce stress, and eat healthier. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Lisa. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great name.
Lisas are just the best, aren't they?
Yes, there's a lot of us, that's for sure. So as a teacher and a mom, my life just flies by. It literally does move at 100 miles per hour. It just seems like you work and then you come home and then you have to figure out dinner. And cooking can become just one more thing to do on my very, very long to-do list. I don't mind cooking, but sometimes I just don't feel prepared. You call it the dinner dilemma, and I call it the 5 o'clock scramble. It's the same thing. It's the same dance every time right in front of that fridge. Yep. So I love that you describe yourself as a home cook. You're not a chef or someone with tons of training. You're just like me, an everyday cook who has figured out how to be prepared and make wonderful, healthy meals every day, which gives me a lot of hope because let me tell you, hope's not very plentiful in front of that open fridge sometimes.
There is absolutely, I am here to tell you that there is absolutely hope. I promise.
So glad. So tell me a little bit about your cooking and meal planning philosophy and how this kind of came about.
So it started because I've always loved to cook. And I really wanted, as my kids were getting older, I really wanted to kind of get back into the working world. And I wanted to do something that would marry all my loves and my passions. And it just seemed to fit to do something that would revolve around cooking. But at the same time, I didn't want to create just another food blog with recipes. I wanted to really provide a website that created value and made cooking and mealtime easier for people. Because speaking of that open fridge, that was completely me when my kids were younger. I was me in front of the open fridge, staring inside it, saying, I swear there's something in here. There's got to be something in here. I can fix them. Meanwhile, they're racing around the kitchen, pulling at me. The dog's barking. Everyone's hungry and getting hangry. And I remember what that felt like. And I also remember running through the grocery store at 5 o'clock, throwing a bunch of stuff in the cart, thinking, okay, I've got to have something here to make dinner. And then you get home and you don't still know what to do for dinner. So you end up ordering takeout. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say, I think we were on a first name basis with our pizza delivery boy. I think we helped him through college quite a bit on a first name basis there.
That's right. Your additional child.
Exactly. And so I was remembering back to that time, but I also remembered those infrequent times where I actually did menu plan, that we ate healthier. I was less stressed in the evening. I even actually had time to enjoy bath time or an extra story with my kids versus, by the time you do the dinner scramble, everything runs so late. It's like, okay, no, bedtime, bath time, quick. No, I can read you 2 sentences from that book. Right. Bedtime.
Right.
Our evenings went so much more smoothly. We were less stressed. I was saving money because I wasn't running through the grocery store with no list, buying a bunch of stuff I was never going to cook, honestly. And then end up throwing it out and just remembering the amount of food waste I would have. And I thought, okay, I would love to be able to share how menu planning has transformed the way I cook, the way we eat, how it's made life so much easier and all the benefits of menu planning. And I would just love to share that part of cooking with other people who I'm sure are feeling the same way or in the same boat that I used to be in. And so that's how A Menu for You was born.
Wow. Well, and I think that so many of us have just been there. It really is true. It just is so hard even though there's food in the pantry and in the fridge, sometimes it's hard to figure out what the heck to do. So,
Exactly.
and it is true. Saving money is a big deal, especially for teachers. We don't make a ton of money. And so being able to save money helps, but also having more time with your family and to have that calmness in the evening. A simple things like planning, we know that creates that in the classroom, but we just don't think to do that in our homes sometimes too. So that's a big benefit. I think that's a huge benefit that is offered there. Okay,
Absolutely.
so what's your process? Talk to me about your process. Do you plan seasonally, monthly, weekly? I mean, where do you even begin?
So what I like to tell my clients and members is you start where you're at, so to speak. So if you are already menu planning, because some people do menu plan, but just need more inspiration, that's one thing.
Right.
But if you've menu planned before, start small. I think sometimes people can think menu planning, oh my gosh, that means I have to plan 7 different menus, 7 nights of the week, every single night. And that alone can feel so overwhelming and stressful. You do not have to plan. Even I don't cook 7 nights a week, because if you plan, there's leftovers. There's obviously like date night or a night where you order takeout versus 5 nights where you order takeout.
Right.
So I like to start with the calendar. I like to start with pull out your calendar and just pick 2 nights during the week that you can plan to cook those nights. Those are the nights you're going to be home. You'll have some time. You can do a little pre-prep beforehand. So I always like to tell people to pull out your calendar and just pick 2 nights. Start small. And another thing I think people think when it comes to menu planning is that they have to all of a sudden make some very fancy beef stroganoff with homemade noodles and homemade marinara sauce. No. You start what you like to cook. So if your family loves chicken, maybe it's chicken enchiladas instead of the roast chicken that you always make. So start with what you like to cook, because you're more likely to stick to a schedule if you're making food that you know is going to get eaten. And then you can kind of branch off from there down the road. But the worst thing you can do is plan a bunch of menus that no one's going to eat because you think, okay, well, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, and it doesn't work. And then you're more than likely to just stop menu planning altogether. So I think calendar and starting off with what you love to eat are the 2 things I like to do first, or even the recipes you cook the most. So maybe it is spaghetti Tuesdays or taco Tuesdays or waffle Wednesdays, whatever it is. Start with what you like to cook and what you cook often. And that way you feel comfortable doing that. You're not creating extra stress by going and trying something completely new or out of your comfort zone. So I would definitely start small, little baby steps, because baby steps forward are way better than trying to take big leaps forward and then feeling overwhelmed and stopping altogether.
Okay. So it's like you're just trying to create some sort of a habit then is what you're doing. Okay.
Exactly.
So you're making it doable. I like that it's doable and putting it into some sort of formula where it actually is something that you could do, that you would do, because there's nothing worse than making meals that your family won't eat. It feels terrible, and it's not personal, but it feels personal. And it just creates this feeling of, oh, I just give up. And I think that is really dangerous sometimes, because then we just give up and we don't meal plan, and then we get back into that spiral. So starting where you are, and making it, and just choosing a couple nights a week, that it's progress, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So from there, once you have that, once you have that and you have that in place, then do you expand from there? I mean, do you start planning, whole weeks? Do you plan a couple nights a week for a month, or is, where do you go from, okay, now I've got a couple nights a week down. What do I do from there?
Oh, absolutely. Then I would just even add in 1 day extra a week. So maybe you start off with 2 days a week and do that for a couple weeks or even a month. I mean, depending on your schedule, I would start off with 2 days a week for at least 2 weeks minimum, kind of to start that habit. And then every week after, add an extra day. But you're never going to add 7 days, because the way meal planning works too is you're going to plan for leftovers. So if you're doing like a roast chicken dinner on a Monday, you can plan to turn that chicken into chicken soup, into chicken tacos, into chicken enchiladas for Tuesday. So you're using menus to also increase the number of recipes you can make throughout the week, which also saves time and also lowers food waste as well, because you're using up all the food that you've bought and you've made. So you can slowly add in extra days. And then you can also slowly add in maybe new recipes. So maybe if your kids like to eat broccoli, try a new twist on broccoli. Like try maybe an Asian broccoli that's tossed with a little soy sauce or sesame oil or toasted sesame seeds. So you can kind of branch off doing that as well. Or if your kids love spaghetti sauce, you can try, which I do all the time, and this is the way I would get my kids to eat vegetables when they were little, is you can make your spaghetti sauce with vegetables. So I always would dice up celery and carrots and mushrooms in my tomato sauce. And so you can add that in. So you can also branch out a little bit that way. In fact, last night for dinner, I made a kale pesto, and my daughter is like a kale, like, no, doesn't eat kale, won't eat kale salad. I've tried it in a bunch of different things. The only way I can get her to eat kale is in this kale pesto. So you can kind of branch off and do things like that as you get going with the menu planning. And you can also do more meal prepping. I don't not advocate, that's the wrong word. I'm not a big meal prepper. I know that a lot of people find value in taking a whole Sunday and prepping out everything for the week. But to me, that just makes me stressed and overwhelmed because I want my weekend to be my weekend. I want to enjoy time with my family. It's one thing to do a little bit of prep, but I don't want to take hours on a weekend to prep everything for the week. But you can still do a little bit of prep. I like to do when you go to the grocery store, come home and if you're doing the grocery store, usually you go on the weekends if you're working during the week. So go to the grocery store, come home, wash all your produce, chop up some vegetables, chop up some onions, chop up the garlic, chop up some carrots, some celery, store it in containers in your refrigerator. And that way it's easy to go. It's grab and go snack. It's easy to make lunches. It's easy to make dinners because if you're making something with chopped onion, you can just go into your fridge and scoop out whatever quantity of chopped onion you need. Nice. So you can also start adding in more prep time and bring the family in too. Like I love getting my kids involved in prepping in the kitchen if there's time, which that happens more on the weekends, but you can also add in some prep time as well.
Okay. So, and I like that, I've tried meal prepping and I have to say, when you're working, especially your weekend is just, it's such a valuable time and we have so little time of that and teachers take work home as it is. And then to have to do meal prepping and spend a whole day or even several hours on a weekend is just not reasonable and doable. I think, it just becomes something that is exhausting and it's stealing your personal time from you as opposed to just, you're going to make dinner anyway. I like chopping the vegetables. I think that's a great idea. That's a simple thing that makes things go faster and easier. So that's a good tip. For sure.
And just keeping it manageable. I think just keeping it manageable because if you're doing something that's leading to more stress and feeling more overwhelmed, you're going to stop doing it.
Right. Yeah, we're not looking for perfect. We just want to feel balanced and prepared, exactly. I think. And so that's really the key. And I like the idea of, sounds like you repurpose like a main ingredient. So like if you're doing chicken, then you repurpose that chicken. You make enough that you can repurpose that chicken for a couple of meals during the week. So you're really not cooking completely from scratch, but it's still fresh food that you've made.
Exactly.
And so repurposing it a couple of times, which is awesome. So, and then you have menus and you have recipes for some of those things, don't you?
Right. Exactly. Okay. So when it comes to menu planning, menu planning doesn't mean necessarily cooking every single night. But if you're planning, you can plan for that roasted chicken. You can plan for the ground beef that maybe was tacos one night and it'll be a taco bowl the next night, or it'll be, the base for a pasta sauce, 2 nights later.
Right.
So if you're planning,
which is nice. Well, and with kids, or even other activities, or if you volunteer, or you take classes or whatever it is you're doing in the evening, then it gives you more time and you don't feel that rush of, we've got soccer practice. You already have something that is mostly started so you can quickly have a dinner ready, whether you're eating before soccer practice or after soccer practice, whichever one, it doesn't matter. It's not, I have to go home and cook for an hour and we're already starving. So then you're going out to dinner and, Uber Eats starts sounding really darn good right about then.
Exactly. And it pushes the whole night later because kids come home and they still have to do homework. You still have to do your stuff. So if you're planning ahead of time, and you can plan for the soccer practice or for the nights of sport practice, and I know when my kids were younger and we had multiple practices, it seemed like most nights we were always at someone's practice or driving carpool somewhere. And it's so nice to be able to say, okay, well, on those nights, I'm going to plan a crock pot meal. I'm going to plan a one pot meal. I'm going to plan a meal that I can actually put in my crock pot on Sunday and I can have Monday night as well and just reheat it. Or when my kids got older, it was nice to also have something that was in the crock pot that you just keep on low, and people ate when they came home. So you didn't have to worry about, someone's practice ended early, another practice ended late. They bring their friends home as they get older and more in kind of the middle school and high school, especially high school years, they're bringing friends home. You don't have to worry because it's on low and you eat whenever you're around, which makes so much.
Right.
Better.
Okay.
So much.
Yeah. So here's one of my dilemmas though. Okay. So I do cook most nights, yes, we repurpose things or we have leftovers and stuff, and we do cook most nights, but I get stuck in this cooking rut. And it's like, you have the same meals that you are cooking over and over again, and we're all sick to death of them at some point. And I'm too tired to think of new meals or, how do you get out of that rut? How do you keep from getting stuck in that rut? What do you do to kind of mix things up without going, oh my gosh, now I have to make beef Wellington or, go to the cookbooks and figure out all the ingredients. It just seems like such a chore. And honestly, I mean, truly, Uber Eats does sound really good right about then,
Absolutely.
So how do you stay on track?
I think it's little changes. So I'm all about having a really well-stocked pantry, because if you have things on hand, you're more likely to try something new. So for example, I always keep red and green curry on hand. They're always in my pantry or the fridge or both, because we go through so much here. So for example, if you love chicken soup, try like a chicken Thai version, like a chicken Thai curry. If your kids love rice, try quinoa or try a different grain, try a farro, try lentils. If your kids love beans, do like a lentil soup. So there's little small changes you can make to recipes that everyone loves to eat that isn't going to be complicated to make, but it's just like a little pivot in a different direction. And that definitely comes from having a well-stocked pantry and having those ingredients on hand to be able to add a different spice. So you can add like a turmeric or a curry powder instead of, your usual cumin or paprika. So there's different spices you can add that actually lend a different flavor, using a little bit of lime juice instead of lemon juice, adding fresh cilantro instead of fresh parsley. So that's another thing of being really well stocked in your pantry, as well as your fridge and your freezer. Because if there's certain foods you always have on hand, you also always have a dinner ready. Even if the dinner you planned isn't necessarily maybe the dinner that's going to work that night, you can kind of pivot on the fly.
Right.
So that is really key, I think, to making the small changes. So whatever foods you like, see how you can make like the small change to make it into, transform it into something that would be new and fresh and exciting for you.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I never thought to do such a small little changes would make such a difference. But when you talk about that, absolutely, it would make a big difference. And you're not coming up with a brand new recipe. You're just making a few tweaks, and it is a whole new flavor. So, and I think for families, when you already have a recipe that everyone loves and will eat, you starting completely from scratch sometimes is exhausting. Yes, you do want to add some new things in like that, but I usually try and do that on a night like on the weekend when the kids are there and they can help cook, and we can say, oh, we're trying something new, and then it's an adventure as opposed to, the weeknight scramble. So
right, exactly. And spices really do transform food. They really do. My favorite to do right now is roast carrots with za'atar. Is a wonderful Middle Eastern spice, and it just adds a whole different kind of layer of kind of smoky, earthy flavor to the carrots. And it literally it's just a matter of roasting them with a different spice. That's all I did to change the flavor.
Right. But then you have a whole new vegetable to serve. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah. And that's such a simple fix too. I like simple. Simple is always good in a busy life for sure.
Yes. Oh gosh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, true. That's so true.
For sure. So, and talking about having a stock pantry and fridge and all of that. Now you have a freebie for my listeners as well. So tell me a little bit about that.
I do. I created a freebie for your listeners, and it is all of the basics that I have in my pantry and fridge and freezer that I highly recommend. It's everything from canned goods to baked goods to spices to everything you would need to create really amazing, yummy meals.
Nice. So then you're always prepared. Yes, you're going to still meal plan and go buy things, but these are things that are supplemental in a meal, but also could turn into a meal. Is that correct?
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The three things I actually always have on hand, actually four things I always have on hand for a really quick meal is I always have frozen shrimp. I always have chicken broth, coconut milk, and curry powder, curry paste.
Curry
And
paste.
because
Interesting.
that's shrimp curry
Oh,
in a heartbeat. And then I always have a vegetable in the fridge at some point, and I'll just throw whatever vegetable I have in the fridge into the curry. And so regardless of if it is a night where it's gotten busier, or maybe I have something planned and I'm like, my daughter doesn't really want it, or my husband just went out for a big lunch and he's like, I can whip that up in no time.
and then you have a good meal. Awesome.
Exactly.
So would you say it's helpful to have maybe a couple of signature dishes that are super easy to come up with at any given time because you could keep all the ingredients in your pantry and fridge and freezer?
Absolutely.
Your backup.
Absolutely.
Those are your backup plan for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Nice. So yeah, to kind of figure out what those might be. Okay. Well, and then another question for you. So as we're talking about all of this, when you have school lunches, whether it's for myself as the adult and teacher who has, 15 minutes to eat and and trying to get myself out the door, or kids, what about school lunches? What kinds of things do you, honestly, another boring sandwich. Oh my gosh. It's like, I can't even think of, I'd rather almost not eat. Right. And I'm an eater, but sometimes I look at that and think that is all the creativity I had because I have 2 brain cells in the morning and one of them's busy.
I know. And the sandwiches, I know. It's like really, really, no, school lunches. What I would usually do for my kids, both of my kids, I was very lucky, loved leftovers. So a lot of times the dinner from the night before turned into a school lunch the next day.
Nice.
Very, very often. Whether it was soups, whether it was chicken, whatever, tacos. I would actually, if I didn't have leftovers from the night before, a lot of times I would pop a baked potato in the microwave really quickly in the morning. And then you cut it in half, put it in a thermos. And then in the reusable containers, I would have all the little toppings. I'd have like a little cheese. I'd have some maybe ground beef. I'd have a little sour cream, whatever my kids, they kind of like on their baked potatoes. So I would do that a lot of times. And both of my kids actually loved cheese platters. So I would do like a hummus. I would do a bunch of different vegetables. I would do some different meats. So maybe it was prosciutto or salami or a little turkey, whatever meat my kids liked. There'd probably be a little cheese in there. And then some
olives, sure.
Olives, or nuts. So my kids both really loved, and cheese platters are super easy to put together.
We call it a plate of little things.
Yeah, it's really easy. And the kids have fun. Like, they actually would love to make it with me in the mornings for their lunches. So sometimes I could kind of pre-package it in the fridge to be ready to go when I was making lunches in the morning. But my kids loved also grabbing stuff from the fridge to put into their school lunches. So I would say that those probably were the 3 biggest things. So leftovers, baked potato, and the cheese platter. For you, I love the idea, and I do this for lunch for me all the time, is I will roast up a bunch of vegetables over the weekend because it's quick and it's super easy.
Right.
And then I'll make a big pot of quinoa and a little tahini dressing. And then rotisserie chicken, just store-bought, whether it's Costco or your local grocery store. I break it down. So I, take off pick up all the meat, cut it up into slices, and I'll just make quinoa bowl for myself for lunch. So just a little bit. And you can have it. The great thing is it doesn't have to be hot. It can be easily room temperature. Or if you want it hot, you can also put like the quinoa and the chicken and the veggies in a thermos, like warm it up beforehand, put it in a thermos, and then just drizzle the tahini dressing on top when you're ready to eat. So it goes both ways, really. Nice. You can do kind of variations. You can add different vegetables. You can add chopped up olives. You can add a little like lemon zest, or a little preserved lemon is really good. Or a little you can do toasted pine nuts, throw that in. So you can kind of take it to different levels depending on what you like to eat. So I would say that that's probably one of any kind of a bowl, any kind of basically like a grain, vegetable, and protein, and then a dressing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's so easy too. That's such a simple way to do that. So I love that. And it's a good, healthy meal. And you're repurposing a lot of the things that you already have. So, using up all the leftovers. And so you're saving money too. That's a win for sure.
Exactly. Because teachers, you guys need all the protein and nutrients you can get because you have a very important job.
Right. Okay. So, gosh, honestly, I wish I'd found you years ago.
Well, I'm here now.
Absolutely. All right. So how can my listeners find you?
So there's multiple ways. I have a website. So www.amenuforyou.com. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. under A Menu for You as well. And I also have a YouTube channel that I put up all sorts of fun cooking videos. And that's also where I move over a lot of my Instagram stories and Instagram lives over to YouTube. And that's also A Menu for You.
Nice. All right. And so what kinds of, real quick, before we do a little recap, so what kinds of services do you offer? So you have this business is called A Menu for You, and obviously you help with all kinds of things from like figuring out your pantry to menus. What other, do you do recipes? What kinds of things do you do?
I do. So A Menu for You is a membership site, but we also do have visitor things as well for people to enjoy. So I have recipes, menus. I have different categories. So you can look at all the different categories I have, from 30-minute meals to one-pot meals to comfort meals. So you can look up by category. You can also search by, if you've gone to the store and have a bunch of different, a bunch of chicken that you've just bought, you can search by ingredients. You can also see all the pictures and the descriptions. You can go to the recipes. Each recipe has a printable grocery list, as well as you can print the whole recipe out or save it to your recipe box if you're a member. I also have a blog, and my blog posts range from different recipes to menu planning tips to party planning ideas, especially during now holidays. So that is also what I offer. And I also offer one-on-one coaching. So I do meal plan coaching for people that need a little bit extra help. And what that entails is basically working with people to design menus based on the way they cook and the way they eat and what they have time for. So I also offer coaching. And yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. All right. So after my listeners grab the freebie, they go and get their pantry and fridge and freezer checklist, and they stock their pantry, and they go check out your website. So what 3 steps should they take from that point on?
What 3 steps to menu plan?
Yeah.
They
should got their fridge and freezer stocked, and they've got, checked out your website. What should they do to start menu planning?
They should print out my calendar, because I have a menu planning calendar on the website. So the first step they should take is print out the calendar. The next step they should take is pick 2 nights that they're going to cook dinner.
Nice.
And the third step is fill in those 2 nights with what they're actually going to cook.
Perfect. Wonderful. Yeah. All right. So everyone, you can go grab that freebie over at www.hopeineducation.com/vault. The link's going to be in the show notes on the website. It's www.hopeineducation.com/podcast. So that's it, my teacher friends. We're out of time and I'm out of breath. So thanks so much for joining me today. If you liked today's episode, I'd love it if you go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave a review. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. Also, you can continue the conversation online with me on my Facebook page, and you can find the show notes again on www.hopeineducation.com/podcast. Remember, a happy teacher is a good teacher. Until next time, teach joyfully and take care of you.